Okay, welcome to the Tampa Bay IIBA study group. This is our international study group. Today is 4/25/26. So today we're going to start with this. This is our Slack channel, our file repository. These are the files that we've put together for your assistance. One of the things I want to draw your attention to is the CBAP techniques, groups 1 through 8. They're not in order right here, but I finished all of the workbooks for you. So this is all the techniques in just one group at a time, and I tried to make them in logical groups. The first ones are the easiest ones, and then it gets a little harder. You got to go through them all. And I've said, take one and spend 2 weeks going through it, or one a week, or whatever. Group 6 is all of the graphs, all of the process models, how to tell the SARs from the gains. I mean, it's like you will have questions on the test about these. What's the difference? Is you see this notation? Which kind of notation is it? Here's a crow's foot notation. Here's cardinality. You're going to have them on the test. So I put it together for you, and let's see if I can just open it for you real quick. Um, in this one, I gave you examples so that you can see true examples of what we're talking about. And I went beyond what the Babok has for some of these. Um, here's the different cardinality symbols. It's overwhelming if you've never seen it before. You've got to get used to it and kind of practice with it. But you need to understand there will be questions on the test that say you see this symbol, what does it mean? And so you need to know this is a 0 to many or 1 to many or whatever. Um, so you need to study these. The difference between the Gaines-Sarson notation and the Jordan notation. I found some really good resources that do a comparison between the two. I've never seen these before. I was so excited whenever I found them because they're going to give you the information that I wish I had whenever I was getting ready for my test. So I encourage you to go in and look at these. Also, this one down here, this is probably the very last one you should look at. It is the word problems and logic problems. And what I did is I literally went in and gave you, um, let's go to first part. So here's information about what you're going to be doing a cost comparison. And then here is a example of a thing from the test. Not exactly, but it's this kind. A company is comparing two vendors for a software system, and it gives you all this information, and then it wants to know which one is you should choose. So I put stop right here and figure it out the best you can, and then on the next page, I show you how I would do it. Um, Here's how you break it down, and you do the comparison between the two, and then it goes deeper into the explanation. So you get to see how much you know, and then you get more information for every single one. As you progress through this, down here near the bottom, this is still math. You need to know the formulas, is why I put the formulas in here. Let's see. Weighted scale models, problem solve a 7. Time tracking software for a small business. This is one that I actually show you how to make it into a grid because you get so many different elements. It's like you got to compare apples to apples, but it's all mixed up. And whenever you get vendor bids or requests for bids or whatever your company calls it, they're not going to give it to you in the same format. One of them will put it in paragraphs, another one will put it in tables. So you have to put it in something that you can compare. And this is what I would suggest that you plan on doing on your scratch paper during the test. And then as you get further in here, these are just logic problems. Um, well, maybe put logic problems a little further back. There we
Tia,
go. Yes, ma'am.
sorry, maybe I can wait after you're done. Just a quick
Okay. Let
question
me
that
show
I.
you one
Mhm.
more thing. The very bottom ones are logic problems, and it's just do a comparison between um, two different Well, maybe it didn't get all my pages. Well, I didn't get all pages in here. Let me go back and get the rest of the file. I don't know why it would bring all the pages over. But so this is bids from multiple companies and they're just giving you comparisons and you have to go in and figure out why why you would pick one over another. But let me check that. What is your question, Chetna?
Mostly around, I mean, all this logic and maths associated formulas and
Hmm.
this section of the exam paper. Is this all captured as part of the BABOK, or is this in addition that when we go through a section, we need to understand it enough so we know how these mathematical calculations are to be done?
The calculations are mentioned at a high level throughout the Babok in different places. It's like you know that you got to know return on investment, the formula for return on investment. You know you're going to have to figure out how much this is going to cost per year,
Mm,
um, things like that. But the Babok doesn't do a great job at giving you the formula and the explanation and examples. It just doesn't.
okay.
So I
So
put
this is
this
just
together.
samples. What we're looking at is just an idea, a high level example of the kind of questions that we can expect.
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
yeah, it is. But it looks like I should have had at least 30 pages in here and it only brought over 25. So I will go back and find that the explanation for that and get it uploaded. But all those are in the repository in Slack for you. Do
Mhm.
y'all have any questions or any concerns about accessing the repository? Have you been able to? Have you tried
Yeah,
lately?
can you hear me now?
Yes, yes, I can.
Okay. Okay. Sorry, I was just having some issues with my microphone, audio, etc. No, that was what I was about to say. I still don't have access to Slack,
Okay.
to the
Okay.
channel.
Let's do this thing right here. Okay, Jose, if you'll drop in the chat your email again. Some For some
Yes.
reason it kicks people out periodically. It looks like none of y'all have access. So all three of you, if you'll give me your email in the chat, I will go ahead and just put it in here. I'm going to move my screen over so this part isn't recorded. Okay, chat now, got yours. Okay, Jose, I've got yours.
Oh, sorry. I was talking on mute here. I get a pop-up which says my free trial has ended for Slack. Uh,
Okay,
I don't know. I
okay.
think it's something to do with that. It
Let
looks like I
me.
may have access to the Slack, to the group.
It should have just sent you an invitation. And the free trial thing, we've been having challenges with Slack for several of our groups. So we will work on that. Um, Gabrielle, can you give me your email, please? Jose,
Yes.
your invitation is on its way. I see Amal has joined us.
Yeah. Good morning to everyone.
Good morning. Good morning. Okay. Uh, I'll wait and add Gabrielle whenever she's able to give me her email, and we will get started on. Let me move this over. We'll get started on our questions for today. Do I remember correctly that we agreed that we were going to go through chapter 6 again? I'm sorry, chapter 5 again?
Yes, five only. It was
5
the one
only.
that
Okay.
we had a really bad grade.
We just need to get polished on it. So whenever we get a problem wrong, we need to just identify study for that section. So let me start that exam. Okay, Gabrielle, are you with us today? Oh, there you are. Okay, let me go ahead and add
Hi.
your email.
Morning.
Good morning.
Hello.
And okay, should have gotten invitations to all of you. Imal, go ahead and give me yours also, and I will get you in this channel just to be sure it's working.
Sure.
I don't seem to have any access to the files, Thea. I
Okay,
can see that I have access to Slack to the channel, but I don't seem to have access to any of the documents, the files placed there.
do you have the repository? File
No, I don't see it
repository at the
reflected.
top?
No, I don't see that either.
Okay, let me pull this back over and let me just show you where it's at. So in our channel, it says file repository right up here. Do you see that?
No, I don't see it. No,
So it's not saved
I
for
don't
you.
see the channel 2026 CBAP Tampa Bay. No, I just have access to the Slack, but I don't see that group.
Okay, I'm going to ask our Vice President of Technology to reach out to the three of you and work on getting that done because he's had to work on that for our domestic group.
Okay.
Okay, let's get started on questions. Y'all ready?
Yep.
Okay, when requirements require a change, what are the key areas of impact that must be considered during the analysis of the required change? So, when requirements require change, that means that we are in which task?
Requirements required change.
In chapter 5.
Maintain requirements.
Keep going down.
Assess change.
Assess requirement changes. Yeah.
Assess requirements changes. Okay, so the key areas of impact. So in assess requirement changes, there's impact analysis as one of the elements. So is it schedule? Is schedule in there? I've got that in two of these.
No, I don't see scheduled.
Okay, that means we can eliminate this one and we can eliminate this one. And so how about benefit?
Oh, sorry. There seems to be schedule. My bad. I do
Okay.
see benefit. Now I am just going back. I do see
Okay.
benefit and schedule both.
Okay, so benefit and schedule are in there. So let's go through this one. How about cost?
Yep, cost. Yeah.
Impact
And urgency. Yeah, I
and
think.
urgency. Okay, so let's pick this one. And so that is all of them. Benefit, cost, impact, schedule, and urgency are in impact analysis. So these are the key areas that you have to think about whenever someone says, we need to change this requirement. You've got to not only do this, but you've got to go through all your trace requirements. What does this impact? What is it impacted by? Is it going to, who do we need to talk to? Then you got to go through your prioritized requirements. Does this change its priority according to all the other requirements? You're the business analyst for an online billing systems project. You've worked with several stakeholders that need different types of information related to the assessing requirements changes. Which stakeholder would you care most about adherence to compliance standards? I'm sorry, which stakeholder would care most about adherence to compliance standards? So compliance standards makes you think of what? Which stakeholder would that be?
Governance regulator.
That would be our regulator, wouldn't it? Let's see. A regulator will want to ensure all compliance standards have been followed. That is their focus. If compliance standards are broken, there are repercussions, there's paperwork, there's reports, there's audits. It's a domino effect. So they really want to focus on compliance standards. Anytime you see regulations, compliance, um, for that matter, standards, consider is it a regulator you're talking about?
Mhm.
Which of the following stakeholders are typically involved in reviewing and approving requirements? So, reviewing and approving requirements, which task is this?
Approve.
It's going to be
Yes,
your
approve.
approve requirements task. That's right. And for this task, you have quite a list of people, but which ones are involved in this? So you have to go to their role responsibilities in the task. So I'm going to assume domain SME is one of them because it's in all of these. Um, implementation SME, is that in there?
No.
No.
Okay. Is sponsor in there?
Yes.
Okay. So sponsors in all three. I guess I should have not chosen that one. How about project manager? Is he in there?
Yes.
Review
Okay.
or
Is he
approve.
is he responsible for reviewing and approving requirements?
No. It would be more of
Okay.
the sponsor.
No.
Okay. How about the customer or end user?
Stakeholder prioritization. Yes, review, validation, and prioritization. Yeah, I think so.
For which one? Customer or end user?
End user, end user.
Okay. So do we feel like domain SME, end user, and sponsor are the ones typically involved in reviewing and approving requirements?
No, end user doesn't fit, right? I don't think end user will sit right.
Do you,
Domain
well,
SME and sponsor, yes.
okay. And who else? Your options are customer, end user, project manager, tester.
Again, Thea, I think last time you mentioned some sort of a difference between customer and end user as per the BABOK terms.
Mm-hmm.
Customer would be your client, end user would be business. Is that right?
No, no.
No.
Your customer is outside of your building. They're outside of
Okay.
your organization,
Hmm.
and your end user is inside your organization.
Yeah, business. Okay, end user.
Okay, let's test this one. Okay. End users are listed as a stakeholder group in the approve requirements task, and they may review requirements, but they're not cited as giving approval, which is what the question is asking. The customer end user, I'm sorry, the customer domain SME and sponsor, these are the ones that have to give approval. So let's walk through them. The domain SME needs to give approval to requirements because they understand how the requirements will impact the domain. It's like, no, you can't take away my enter name field because that's going to cause a cascade effect in all my databases. Um, the customer is needs to be involved in reviewing and approving requirements, a representative of your customer, because they're the ones who say, this is how I use it. This is what I need to, I've got to be able to enter my name into the trouble ticket or into the order. Um, they're the ones who kind of talk about how they use the system. The sponsor is the one who says, this is going to bring value to our organization. That's their job, is to guard the value to the organization. That's why these three are involved in reviewing and approving the requirements. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Requirements that represent an ongoing need must be maintained to ensure that they remain valid over time. Let's stop there. Whenever we're talking about maintaining requirements, uh, I want you to remember what the Babok's definition of maintaining requirements is. Maintaining requirements talks about You not only keep it accessible, but you keep it updated so that anytime there's a change, let's say they changed one of the project words. This word, the word warranty, is no longer going to mean this, it's going to mean this. So we all use it the same way. Well, you got to go into all your requirements and see if did you use that word. You have to maintain it to keep it updated. You have to maintain it to put in notes to say who that it's been approved by the approving body, that there was a concern, a risk associated with it. This is maintaining it. You keep it fresh all the time. That's maintaining it. So they have to be maintained to ensure that they remain valid over time. Different stakeholders reference and use these requirements. Which of the following represents why testers would require maintained requirements? Let's step back also. Requirements that represent ongoing need. So let's say you have a requirement that the system shall respond within 0.3 seconds. Okay, so that's an ongoing need. It's not just to implement it, we have to get this done. It's got to happen beyond uh, beyond rollout. And so whenever the system is in place, this requirement identifies how the testers are going to look at this system and do regression testing. So anytime they make a change to any part of the system, the testers have to go in and test everything as the way it's supposed to be. That's called regression testing. And whenever they test to see, is it still working the way it's supposed to, because we made this change, they're going to have maintained requirements that tell them what to be testing. Well, I
Understand.
maybe shouldn't have given you so much explanation. Let's read the answers. Testers are likely to reference maintained requirements to confirm the current state. Testers utilize maintained requirements when developing regression tests and conducting impact analysis for enhancement. Testers use maintained requirements to aid in test plan and test case creation. Our testers reference maintained requirements on a regular basis to ensure that they are accurately reflecting stated needs. I'm going to give you 5 count to walk through these. Okay, can we eliminate one?
The first one.
Yeah, confirm the current state.
Okay. And which one do you think is the best answer according to the BABOK?
I go with B.
Tell me why.
Sorry,
Chetna, you just went on mute, dear.
sorry, that's my baby crying in the background. I'll go with B as well. Yeah.
Okay. Jose, what do you think?
I will probably go with C,
Okay.
to aid in test plan and test creation.
Okay. Why do you like C more than B?
The regression test is one example of the tests they do. I think that one explains it in a much better way, the work of a tester and why we need to maintain those requirements up to date.
Okay.
It's an ongoing need.
Okay. Gabrielle, do you want to weigh in here?
Maybe also the D.
You
They
like D?
they are they need to test on a actual requirements basis.
Okay. You said D is in dog, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So we've got answers all over the place. I'm going to just choose the middle one and let's test it. So it says that testers use maintained requirements to aid in test plan and test case creation. Testers' primary responsibility is to develop a testing plan and create test cases. Maintained requirements provide solid reference for these endeavors. Let's look at why it says B is not the right answer. This statement represents implementation subject matter experts. So whenever we're talking about for an enhancement, That's going to be an implementation SME, not a tester. And D, this statement represents domain SMEs. So whenever they're talking about looking at what the system is, we're working, that's what closer to what a domain SME does. So C is the correct answer on that one. Let me just give you some insight in case you don't work in software. Um, and if you don't work with testers, a test plan is how we're going to test the system. It's like the overall, these are the things that we're going to test. This is where I got my information from. Uh, this is the timing that we're going to test it. This is the environment we're going to test it in. And then the test case creation. Test cases are the literal tests that they're going to do. We're going to test to be sure that we're only getting uh, the year 2025. We don't want to get 2024. We don't want to get 2026. So we want to test to see if we're getting only this year. We want to see if we're only getting this state or this region. We want to see if we're only getting this kind of customer. So those are the test plans that they would go through and they would test it just one thing at a time to be sure that they're getting that thing that lines up with the requirements. Do you have any questions on that one?
Tia, a quick question.
Yes,
Okay. Oh, I was thinking that I am on mute. I was testing something, but you can hear me. That
I
is
can hear
good.
you.
Okay, perfect. That's good to know. So the test plan and test case creation is on the testers.
hmm
What about the UET plan and UET creation? Does anyone know who planned the UET and create the UET?
Generally, the business analyst is going to create that because they're going to work with the requirements to say this is important to the customer. And very often I work with testers because as they're working on the tests for their testing the system, I'm working on the same tests to say this is the same thing. We can work together and create tests together. So what the user does in UAT is user acceptance testing. And let me back up. In software development, you you identify your need, you work with your stakeholders to identify what the current state is. What is happening now? Then you work with those same stakeholders and systems SMEs to say, what do we need the future to be like? You may have developers in there. You may have, I encourage you to have your testers in at that point. What does the future need to look like? What does success look like? What do we need to be able to accomplish? What's the schedule we need to achieve? And then, so you have your current and future state, and we're going to go into that in a future knowledge area.
Thank you.
Once you have your current and future state, you identify the transition requirements. How do we get from where we are now to where we want to be? A real easy way to think of this is we're going to move warehouses. We're going to move from the warehouse that we have now in warehouse A, and we bought a brand new warehouse, warehouse B. And so warehouse B, having everything set up in warehouse B is our future state. We need an office over there. That means we need a phone, we need a forklift, we need a whatever we need in warehouse B. So a current state warehouse A, future state warehouse B, and then your transition state is how do we move everything from warehouse A to warehouse B? How do we get the phone installed in warehouse B? How do we get the items from warehouse B A moved into warehouse B? That's our transition requirements. Your transition requirements are not needed after you get to warehouse B. They end. And then things like the phone being working in warehouse B, that's an ongoing requirement that you're going to need after your transition finishes. So whenever you're thinking about user acceptance testing for that situation, your user acceptance would be, let's go over and see if the phone is working. Let's test it. Can we make domestic calls? Can we make international calls? What is it we needed to be able to do with this phone? Do we have the pallets that we needed for the warehouse? Is the forklift running in the warehouse? That would be user acceptance testing. And you as a BA, you've been working with your stakeholders to identify what is our future state need to look like. So acceptance testing is, can you use it the way it is? If you're talking about creating a web page or a database, can you use it the way it is? Is it set up where it's providing the functionality that you needed in the way that you need it? And sometimes whenever they work through user acceptance testing, they'll go, this isn't what I expected. And you got to get them to explain why it's different than what you expected. If you've worked with them closely, they've seen it. They've seen this is the screen we've set up. What do you think of this layout? You want this field needs to be longer or, whatever they want. They've seen it throughout the development. And so it's not a surprise. Some of them, they haven't seen it before. They haven't been able to work with you in the project. So you need to get their feedback before you go to actually deploying this. So the developers have done enough where they can test it, and then it goes into a bucket to deploy. And if you're doing pieces, all of that's going to go into the bucket to deploy in whatever the schedule is, if it's all at once or pieces of it. And they're going to test it as you get into just enough for them to test. If you're doing waterfall, they test the entire system at once, and it's the business analyst's job to say, okay, you are going to enter in a new customer into your new database. And so here's the customer's information. Type it, type this into this field, type this into this field, and they type it in. And if they see anything that is weird, if they see an error, it's their job to take a screenshot and write on their test form what they saw that was wrong. And that way you have examples and you have the scenarios, and hopefully you can record screens so that the developers can and you can go in and do analysis. I gave you a lot of explanation there. Amal, does that answer your question?
Yeah, thank you so much.
You're welcome. You're welcome. I will tell you, UAT testing takes a lot of preparation if you don't work on this as you're doing requirements. Whenever I write a requirement, I always put in another column, how are we going to test this for UAT and how is the tester going to test this? Sometimes it's the same and sometimes it's different. But if you do it as you're writing your requirements, it makes it a whole lot easier because you're thinking of it at that time. Okay, let's move forward. Suppose you discovered that stakeholders are complaining about the requirements for a product. You found that some of the requirements in the review session only applied to a division in Brazil and did not pertain to those in the US and Europe. You realize that in presenting the requirements, you should have, so we're presenting requirements, that means we're in which task?
Proof.
Right, we're in the approved requirements phase. We've gotten them all documented, we've gotten them all the changes down, and now it's like, please approve it so we can freeze these requirements. Okay, so in presenting the requirements you should have, determine which requirements were relevant to which stakeholder group and presented those in an appropriate format. Determine the appropriate stakeholder groups. The Brazilian division had such unique requirements that their requirements should not have been taken into account. Told the Brazilian division that their requirements were out of scope, or held separate interviews with each stakeholder group in order to determine their unique requirements. I'll give you a 10 count on this one. Okay, let's eliminate one, guys. Which one do you want to start with?
Eliminate C.
See, yeah, I would agree.
Yeah, it's like y'all are special. We're not going to pay attention to you. We don't do that. Okay, what do you think about B?
It says some of the requirements only apply to the division in Brazil, but perhaps not all, right? So I think C, B can also be eliminated.
Why?
Because it says some of the requirements in the review session only apply to a division in Brazil, not all.
That's
So
true.
there is overlapping set of requirements which also applies for the Brazilian division.
Probably. But the key in this answer is their requirements should not be
Not.
taken into account. It's like we're going to ignore you. This is another one. We're going to ignore you because you're not like everybody else. So which one
Those
do
are
we think is the right
correct.
answer?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Jose.
Those are actually edge cases that should be considered.
Yeah, that's
Yes.
right. I think B should also
Everyone's.
be eliminated. Hmm.
Which one should be eliminated? Chetna, did you say B or D?
B.
Okay. Okay. So from A or D, which one do we think is the correct answer according to the BABOK?
I'll probably go with D for Denmark.
Okay.
Yeah,
Chetna,
I'm
what's your
also
vote?
leaning towards D. D as in Denmark. Yeah.
Okay. And Gabrielle, what do you think?
I think A would be the correct one.
Okay. Why do you like A more than D?
Because in the D it's only to uh, hold separate
Okay.
interviews, and in the A there
Okay.
you
Yeah. Yeah. I see.
better integrate those requirements.
Yeah.
So we're
Management. Yeah.
presenting the requirements.
Presenting the requirement. Yeah, you're right.
Okay.
This
Okay.
is
Yeah. That one
gathering
is
the
You're right,
requirements.
Gabriel, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gabrielle, you saved
Okay.
us. The task of a business analyst is to ensure the solution requirements and designs are aligned to one another. But whenever we present the requirements, we need to be sure that the requirements we're presenting to a group apply to that group. In a workshop situation, sometimes you need to say out loud, these requirements apply to only this group, but we want to be sure that there's not conflicts with other people's requirements. So, just be sure your stakeholders know this is who I'm talking to for these requirements. If it's super long, you might consider doing it differently, but sometimes in workshop environments or settings, you have to go through all the requirements to be sure you don't have conflicts and or gaps. That's why I love workshops. They are a pain, but I love them. You've been hired as a business analyst for an initiative. You have completed requirements elicitation and documentation. You now want information to help you understand the needs of all stakeholders to assist in managing consensus. Which of the following tools would be helpful? So you want to manage consensus and you want to understand the needs. Which task are you in? You've completed requirements solicitation and documentation. Maybe maintain or prioritize.
Or confirming.
From my side, to manage consensus, it would be C or B.
Is there really a tool called consensus management?
And then the most possible, it would be the C.
Sometimes Watermark uses synonyms for some of these. It might not be called consensus management, but what you're doing is managing conflict consensus management. I don't know. I'm not going to tell you this is the right answer. I want you to tell me. Do we want to use legal and regulatory information for all stakeholders to manage consensus? So I think we can eliminate that.
Yeah.
There are not the user requirements included in the A.
Okay.
So it's not all stakeholders.
Okay. Jose, what do you your vote for the correct answer?
I vote B, and the second one would be C.
What's a change strategy tool here? When we are talking of a tool, I don't know, what are we referring to as a change strategy tool? Thea, any example of
Well,
configuration tools where we are referring to it as?
your change strategy is your plan to move from current state to future state. And I guess if you documented that, it could be used as a tool or information source. But
Okay.
I don't know. That sounds weird to me too.
Yeah, yeah, that was exactly what I was thinking. I see it like guidelines and tools, so I will go with change strategy.
Okay. Let's test change strategy. This tool provides information that would assist the business analyst in managing stakeholder consensus. So change strategy, let's look at this. So change strategy, guidelines and tools, you said? Change strategy is the output of a future chapter. So in chapter 6, which is strategy analysis, we've got analyze current state, define future state, assess risks, and define change strategy. And the output of define change strategy is you get your change strategy and your solution scope. So you use your change strategy in prioritize requirements. And I think that's where we were because let's see, 5.5. 5.5. No, we're at approve requirements. And it also has change strategy. All three of these have change strategy in the guidelines and tools. So in approving requirements, let's go back to the question. Managing consensus, so you get approval by consensus. I'll tell you the truth, whenever I first read this question, I was thinking, are we talking about prioritization, which means this requirement is more important than this requirement, or will give better value than this requirement? And you need consensus on that at some point. The product owner provides that ultimately, but still, it's nice to have consensus. But we're talking about not prioritizing. I'm sorry, we're not talking about approving. I'm not prioritizing. We're talking about approving. Well, y'all walked your way through the logic on that. Good job. When considering change or additions to existing requirements, business analysts assess the impact of the proposed change by considering several aspects, among them being what is gained by accepting the change. What aspect is this? So we're talking about changing requirements, which is assess requirements changes. And the aspects in assess requirements changes, that again is impact analysis in the elements. The aspect that we're talking about, what is gained by accepting the change, is the definition of one of these. So let's see which one it is. Is it benefit, urgency, impact, or schedule? Can we eliminate one?
Urgency.
And schedule.
Okay, we can
And schedule.
eliminate these two.
And
So benefit,
also.
I want to go with benefit, assess the impact, several aspects among them.
why
What
why
would
do you
be?
like benefit, Chetney?
Yeah, I mean, they're already assessing the impact. So we want to assess to see, I mean, there are already an existing set of requirements. It's additions to existing requirements. So we need to know what is the beneficial factor we are able to derive out of this additional bit to the existing requirement.
What is the
So I'm
benefit
reading it.
of accepting the change?
What would
Yeah.
be gained? I mean, It's more so
recommendation.
sounding very positive. So,
You're right. This is what's described in the scenario and is one of the considerations business analysts use to assess the impact of the proposed change. What is the benefit of accepting that change? Do y'all want me to check any of these others? Impact maybe? Okay, impact refers to the number of customers or business processes affected if the change is accepted. You know, it's going to hit training, or it's going to hit intake, whatever it's going to impact. That's what impact is literally talking about. Benefit is what will be gained by accepting the change. Okay, you've been asked to facilitate a workshop to rank requirements to determine their relative importance to stakeholders. What task are you in?
Prioritize.
prioritizing requirements.
Prioritize, right. Prior to the workshop, you prepare by understanding regulatory statutes, contractual obligations, and business policies that may define priorities. Which of the following guidelines are you using? Are you looking at governance approach, business constraints, business assumptions, change strategies? Which one can we eliminate, guys?
Change strategy.
Okay. So what do we think
And
is? Go ahead, Chetna.
business assumptions. I mean, here we get a clearer understanding of everything, so there shouldn't really be an assumption as such, right? Especially around regulatory, contractual, business policies.
Yeah.
Good point.
Okay.
So what do we think is the correct answer according to the BABOK? It's a guideline.
Constraint.
Uh,
The business constraints.
In prioritize requirements. Okay. Business constraints. Chetnia, you agree?
yeah, let's go with business constraints.
Gabrielle, do you agree?
I could the governance approach, because there is documented how to prioritize the requirements and how to manage.
Okay. Okay, I've got 2 votes for B, so let's test B and we'll see what's right. So business constraints, this is the definition of business constraints, is documented as a guideline and tool to prioritize requirements task. Understand regulatory statutes, contractual obligations, and business policies that may define priorities. Let's see why it's not A. The governance approach outlines the approach for prioritizing requirements, but business constraints gives you the material to prioritize the requirements by. Make sense?
Yeah, so governance is too broad and high level, and then that's not that granular to.
Governance tells you what you're going to use. Business constraints, the regulatory statutes, contractual obligations, and business policies tells you what you use actually. You know, it gives you the material to use. In the governance approach, you're going to say, we're going to use the regulatory statutes, contractual obligations, and business policies to make our decisions. But when you actually come to making the decisions, you need what the material to be able to make the decisions by. Let me give you an example. Regulatory statutes. I one time worked at a laboratory that the their standard practice was they took every specimen they received and put it through the 3 tests that 90% of the people asked for, regardless if they asked for it or not. They just knew that their process was faster if they treated every specimen the same way. And then they would take those that, nope, that's not what they asked for. They wanted this other thing. They would go run that test also. For their process, for efficiency, it made sense. But then they got a regulatory statute that said you got to stop running tests that people didn't ask for. There's rules against that. We're making rules against it. If you continue to do that, we will shut down your operations in North America. That's not what we wanted to do. So we ended up having to figure out how we could restructure their entire process to align to regulatory statutes. Hello, Amarachi. Welcome.
Hi, thank you.
Okay. So that's why you have to actually know what the materials are within these three, not just your plan to use them. You have to know it aligns with this particular aspect of your regulatory statute, contractual obligation, or business policy. Does that make sense?
Law.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay. Jesse is a business analyst in an agile environment. The developer has raised issues with the proposed solution, stating there may be risk that the solution is not technically feasible. Jesse advises the stakeholders to prioritize the requirements and put the riskiest ones at the top of the list. What is the rationale behind Jesse's guidance? So, what task are we in?
Prioritizing requirements.
This is prioritizing requirements. You're right. Okay. And the rationale behind his guidance to put the riskiest ones at the top of the list, to implement a proof of concept to ensure the solution is technically feasible, because the developer has raised issues saying it might not work, to ensure adequate time to fix the problem should it occur, minimize the resources that are spent before learning that the proposed solution cannot be delivered, mitigate the risk as early as possible to lessen the probability of minimum impact, and lessen the probability and minimize the impact. Let me give you a 10 count on this one.
I would say it's a D because it's the most important to have the risks listed in their probability and their impact, and then to lessen and minimize the impact.
Okay. Remember, you got to answer it according to the way the Babok does. I'm not telling you you're not, but I just want to remind you of that. Jose, Chetna, what do y'all think?
Still thinking, Tia.
That's okay. Amarachi, Amal, y'all are welcome to chime in.
I will go with A or C.
Okay. To implement a proof of concept to ensure the solution is technically feasible, or to minimize the resources that are spent before learning the proposed solution cannot be delivered.
C, C. A is too restrictive. It just says that we should use a proof of concept when in fact we can use it or not.
Okay. I've got a
Would
vote
C
for C and a vote for D. Chetna, do you have an idea?
No, I'm not sure on this one, Tia.
Okay. Well, let's just test and we'll
I
find
think
out.
I'll go with D. Oh, C. Wow. Okay.
So one of Agile's slogans is to fail fast. That is, don't spend a lot of time on or money on non-risky functionality if there's a chance that overall the solution may not be possible. So the Babok really likes the idea of you figure out if the entire project is going to work before you put a whole lot of effort into it. And I've in real life seen projects that we do the riskiest thing last and discover the project wasn't even, we shouldn't have even been spending time and money on it and manpower. So let's see why it says D is not the correct answer. The rationale is not to mitigate the risk, but should the project fail, there will be minimum investment. So that's why that answer is not correct. Let's look at A. Jesse's rationale is to ensure minimal loss will be incurred if the solution is not feasible. A proof of concept may or may not be pursued. So this isn't going to be a proof of concept, it's to ensure minimal loss. So you got to the right answer. Any questions on that one? Okay, let's move on. Adam is the lead business analyst in a data strategy initiative. The stakeholders on the initiative are having a difficult time coming to a consensus for one of the requirements, and hence there's a high probability that this requirement will change. He decides to give it a lower priority in order to minimize unanticipated rework and wasted effort. So a lower priority is going to be pushing it back in the project so it's not done as early. What ranking factor is Adam employing? So we know this is prioritization. Is he employing the ranking factor called stability, risk, continual prioritization, or regulatory compliance? Let's talk about which one of these we can eliminate.
I think we should eliminate regulatory compliance because this has to do with the different stakeholders just not agreeing to the requirement, and not just that okay, there is a policy or something like a business policy stopping it. It just have to do with probably the individual bias of the stakeholders involved. So I think if we should eliminate, then it should
I think your logic is sound. So if we eliminate regulatory compliance, what do we think the correct answer is?
Divided between stability or continual prioritization. It's not a risk.
both of them, yeah.
So we're talking about a ranking factor in prioritization. So prioritize requirements. The first element is basis for prioritization. Continual prioritization is not a ranking
Right.
factor.
Okay. Stability.
So it sounds like you like stability.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Chetna, what do you think?
Sorry, Thea, slightly distracted, but I think, yeah, stability.
Okay. Gabrielle?
I'm not sure.
Okay. That's a valid answer. Let's test stability. This factor in the prioritization process has to do with the stability of the requirement. If it's deemed unstable, giving it a lower priority makes good sense, right? All right. One of the things that I've found very effective whenever I'm talking to stakeholders and they're having trouble coming to a consensus, and sometimes they're having trouble coming to a consensus because they have problems with each other. It has nothing to do with the requirement. So sometimes whenever that happens, I have to say, I appreciate that you want to have continued conversation about this, and that's absolutely fine. But what I have to do whenever we can't come to an agreement is put this requirement lower, which means it's going to be lower than maybe some things that it shouldn't be, right? Um, if we lower this requirement, we're not going to work on it as soon. If you feel like it's important, we need to come to a consensus. So they see what the repercussions of continuing to maybe bicker about it is. Um, Sometimes they have good, valid reasons for not coming to an agreement. But sometimes if I see that maybe personalities or, you know, that last project you burned me on, that kind of stuff, I'll remind them you might lose this requirement for the next sprint or the next 3 sprints if we can't come to an agreement because we can't work on it until we come to an agreement. ABIA has learned that one of the key SMEs has a need to make some changes to the requirements. So we're talking about changing the requirements. What are the 2 key outputs that should be created to reflect whether or not to make the changes? Requirements change assessment and design change assessment. Requirements that go to the change control board and update requirements. Approve and update requirements are new and improved requirements. Which one can we eliminate?
We are on assess changes. We eliminate approved and updated.
Okay. And which one do we think is the correct answer?
Requirements change and designs change. Requirements and
Got
design.
one vote for A.
Those are some inputs or the outputs. Yeah.
Okay.
Outputs, yeah. I go with A as well. Yeah.
Okay. 2 votes for A. Anybody else?
I also vote for A.
Okay.
Yeah, I want to vote for A, but also a bit conflicted with removing C. I don't know, not that I have like an answer because it's a bit confusing, but I'm a bit conflicted if we should like scratch out C. But then if I'm to choose, I'm going to go for A as the
Okay.
output. Yes, yeah.
So these are the outputs for the task prioritized changes. Requirements prioritized and designs prioritized. And so as we're doing our assessments, we're going to have I'm sorry, not prioritized, changes. Requirement change assessment and design change assessment are the two outputs for assess requirements changes. The reason that we're eliminating C, an assessment is required prior to approving the changes and updating the requirements. So we have to have our assessment completed as an input. Okay, Amarachi?
Yes. Can we see what B says, please?
Yes. The BA should not recommend unassessed changes to the change control board. Keep in mind that the answer has to apply universally and not all organizations have change control boards, so this answer cannot be correct. So in the
Okay.
Babok world, everything is perfect. Everything is exactly the way the Babok says it is. And we have to be sure that our changes are assessed before we take them to a change control board. And assessing a change is going to include the recommendation to approve, modify, or even deny a proposed change because we've told them it's attached to these other requirements. It's going to impact the other requirements in this way. We have to do our whole assessment before we walk into the change of control board to say, this is what it was. This person wants to change it to this, and this is the impact of that change.
Okay, got it.
Oh, goodness. Never seen that one before. Let's go to this one. Geisen works at an IT shop in Toronto. He uses requirements maintained when developing regression tests and conducting impact analysis for an enhancement. What type of stakeholders Geisen? So let's look at what he's doing. Requirements maintained, and he's doing an enhancement. So that means that the solution is in place, people are probably using it, and he's looking at making an improvement to it. The requirements maintained is going to be this is what the solution is supposed to do. It's supposed to respond within 0.3 seconds. It's supposed to uh, give us this particular report. Whatever it's supposed to do is the requirements for that particular solution. So the stakeholder, who is going to be developing regression tests for a solution that's in place? Is that operational support, implementation SME, domain SME, or the tester? Now remember, in the Babok world, they do it a little differently than you might do it in the real world. So answer according to the Babok world. First of all, which one can we eliminate?
Operational support.
C.
Operational support.
Did I hear that we're eliminating B as well?
No, I believe
I think
B is the
C.
answer.
Okay.
A and C for cat, domain subject matter expert.
Okay. So implementation SME is what the Babok would say?
I'll go for domain subject matter expert.
Okay. So I've got one vote for C. How many votes do I have for B?
B, yes.
B.
Okay, 2 votes for B. Gabrielle, what do you think?
Um, the implementation subject matter
Okay, let's
expert.
test B. Okay, per the BABOK, the implementation SME utilizes maintained requirements when developing regression tests and conducting impact analysis for an enhancement. So in the real world, typically the implementation SME is not the one who's doing regression tests, and they may participate in impact analysis. But in the BABOK world, the implementation SME develops regression tests and conducts impact analysis for an enhancement on an existing solution. If you got that one wrong, that's 5.2.7. The active relating requirements to other requirements is called. So relating requirements, is this specificity, traceability, coverage, or linkage? Tell me which one to eliminate.
Eliminate coverage and specificity.
Coverage and
Specificity, yeah, we
specificity.
can eliminate that.
Okay, so you left linkage and traceability. Which one is it?
Traceability.
Relating, okay.
Traceability.
Traceability and relationships are closely related terms. Tracing a requirement refers to the ability to look at a requirement and the others to which it's related. When assessing requirements changes, which of the following roles should the business analyst consult with to determine the impact of the change on stakeholder work activities? Should they consult with the sponsor, the project manager, the end user, or operational support? We know we're in assessing requirements changes. One of these has a job in that task to determine the impact of the change on stakeholder work activities. Which one can we eliminate?
Stakeholder.
Jose, I'm not able to hear you.
No, I'm just reading out loud the question.
Okay.
Can we eliminate operational support here and end user?
Are you sure about that?
No, operational support, yes. Uh,
So what do we think is the correct answer?
Work activities, I would go with either project manager or end user.
I'm
Okay.
thinking project manager as well.
Okay. Gabrielle, what do you think?
Okay.
Most likely the end user,
Why do you think that, Gabrielle?
because he is the nearest on the work and
So you-
can say what is the impact of the change on his work.
Yeah. Project manager would have a say on the schedule of the project itself. The end user would have a say on the day-to-day schedule.
Mhm. Okay. Do we have agreement on end user?
Okay, so I think I have two options that I would go for naturally if I'm looking at this, and it's the end user and then the operational support. I know that probably, and why is because we are trying to determine the impact of the change. So I think yes, so the impact, like the person who feels that impact, that if I'm to think of it, whoever feels the impact. So we're not talking of the person managing it, or we're talking of how we can get it. So if I want to understand the impact something will have, or let's say system will have, I would either be looking at the end user or the person, the support people who interact with the end users, who can easily tell. So I think I would either go for end user or operational support. I don't know.
Okay. Let's test end user. Let's see what we get. The end user uses the solution or the component of the solution and can provide information about the impact of the change on their work activities. Operational support should be consulted to see if a change to a requirement will cause a system to operate effectively or not. But when we're talking about stakeholder work activities, the answer is end user.
Can we check project manager? What is the rationale
Happy
for?
to. Project manager is involved in the change management process, but the BABOK does not spell out that they should be consulted in the importance of the requirement or assessing the value of changes. The sponsor, on the other hand, does talk about the value of changes. I'm sorry, not on this one. The sponsor must approve the prioritization or changes to the requirement, but the end user is the one to talk about the change on stakeholder work activities. Okay. Matt is the lead VA on a project team that will standardize a contentious business process and automate it. Currently, he is ensuring that the stakeholders with approval authority understand and accept the requirements. What is Matt doing? So, which task is he doing, guys? He's ensuring the stakeholders with approval authority understand and accept the requirements. What task is that?
Approve requirements?
Approve.
Approve requirements, okay. And so within that, is he tracking and communicating approvals? Is he managing conflict? Is he gaining consensus? Or is he understanding the stakeholder roles? Which one can we eliminate?
Understand the
Understanding
stakeholder.
the stakeholder roles.
I can eliminate understanding stakeholder roles.
Okay. And which one do we think is the correct answer?
Okay.
Gaining consensus. Approval authority gaining consensus.
We've
Yeah.
got one vote for C.
Another vote for C.
Okay. 2 votes for C. Let's check it. Gaining consensus is described as business analysts are responsible for ensuring the stakeholder with approval authority understand and accept the requirements. Very good. Move on. Sanjay has just met with one of his stakeholders who wants to add 2 new requirements to a solution after it's been signed off on the previous week. In addition, new requirements did not match the overall scope of the solution. However, Sanjay was convinced that the developers could easily handle the 2 new requirements, so he passed them on to the development team. What should Sanjay have done? So, they didn't match the overall scope of the solution. They haven't been signed off on, but he sent them on to development. Should he have updated the business requirement document and asked for sign off again? Once sign off is given on new requirements can be handed off to development. He should have done nothing different since the developers could easily handle the new requirements. This approach was okay. He should have put off the 2 new requirements to a future phase for delivery, or he should have gotten approval to change the scope of the solution from whomever has authority to approve changes and add the new requirements. Let me give you a 10 count to ponder through all that.
We can eliminate B, Tia.
Okay. Eliminating B. What do we think is the correct answer?
Update the requirements and get sign off again.
Yeah.
A, yeah.
A, okay.
A to be eliminated or to be counted as a correct answer?
A is the correct
Correct
answer.
answer.
From my side too. A.
You like A? Okay. So we've got 2 votes for A. Anybody else?
I'll go with A
A.
as well. Yeah.
I'll go with
Okay.
A.
Very good. Let's test A. The scope of the project has been compromised. The new requirements are not within the original scope, and the changes may increase budget, time, or resources. Therefore, an issue must be resolved and the scope changed or the requirements removed. You can't have it always. Let's talk about budget, time, and resources. This is what project management calls the iron triangle. Um, Budget, time, and resources are all connected, literally. And they put this picture in the PMI PMBOK. It's a triangle. If you increase one of them, just according to geometry, if you increase this one, make it longer, this one down here is going to change. Or this one up here is going to, you can't change just one of these things. Two of them will always change. So if you increase the time that's going to take to do something, it's going to cost more money. It may cost more resources. So this is what they call the iron triangle. If you make a change in it, it's going to impact other things. It's like a domino effect.
Then I go with D. Oops. What was the answer? Sorry.
The answer was A.
No, this is
No,
incorrect.
the A is incorrect, right?
Oh, no, I'm so sorry. I read it wrong.
D it is.
The
Okay.
answer is D. Get approval for the change of the scope of the solution from whomever has authority for the approved change and to add the new requirements. So it says any new requirements must be resolved by either officially amending the scope and changing all documentation or removing the requirements to maintain the current scope. This is done through the assess requirements change and approve requirements task within the requirements lifecycle management.
If we didn't have the information that the requirements didn't match the overall scope, then it could be A. But because it goes
Yeah,
above the original scope, it
yeah,
get approval. Okay.
right. Right. You can't send things to development unless they've gone through the proper gates. They
Yeah.
have to go through the review, they have to go through the approval, and then they can go to development. Thank you for catching that.
Jose, and maybe it will be helpful in the future. Maybe that sending again for the sign off can be a misleading word. So when we are sending it for sign off, it really doesn't mean that we have assessed the impact. And if you're sending it through a change control, that means we have been analyzing, assessing the change, and then accordingly forwarded to the change control board or whoever has the authority. If they approve it, then it means it is approved or it is the sign off. So that sign off, for a moment, I thought that you got the correct answer, but the sign off misled you. I'm not sure if I was under the correct impression.
No, it was a sign off and not reading the overall scope being surpassed.
Yeah, if you missed this part, it did not match the overall scope. It would seem like A might be the right answer, but with this, we got to go with D. Okay, let's go to the next one. We're going to get through 20 today instead of 25. You're a business analyst working on a regulatory project. The lead business analyst asks you to prioritize requirements in order to meet regulatory demands imposed on the organization over other stakeholder interests. What is influencing this prioritization? So you want to meet the regulatory demands more than anything else. Is the factor that is influencing this, is this time sensitivity, risk, governance, or penalty? What can we eliminate?
Risk.
So what do we think is the correct answer?
I'm thinking penalty or yeah, penalty. I mean, direct implication would be a penalty when it comes to regulatory.
That's what you're trying to avoid, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, let's test penalty. Penalty is a prioritization factor that speaks to the consequences from not implementing a given requirement, which is, for example, regulatory fines. I've also seen increased audits, more strict audits, other things being penalties. Did you know that in the United States, every single state has a organization that's responsible for creating the regulatory requirements for insurance companies? And they send out requests for, well, it's a requirement for provide us this information for this time period with these filters. And if they aren't given the information, or if the information doesn't hit their standards, doesn't meet their standards, they can literally shut down that insurance company from selling or even holding policies in that state. So that means all those people that had the policies, all those agents that are trying to sell for that company have to change everything. So that's a huge reason to keep the regulatory agencies happy, right? We want to keep them
Yeah.
happy so they'll let us continue to do our jobs.
But
Which of the following?
California has some crazy regulations.
Yes, there are so many states that have crazy regulations. California is one of them. I agree with you. There's countries that have crazy regulations if you are working internationally. Which of the following is an input into gaining approval of requirements? So we know we are working on the task that is called approve requirements. The inputs, are they designs, trace requirements, verified needs, or trace constraints? Let's eliminate one.
Designs.
Okay.
I think it's verified needs.
Does everyone agree with eliminating designs?
No, requirements and designs are the inputs, traced requirements, verified needs, traced constraints. Yeah, I'll go with designs as the answer.
Okay. Chetna, can you switch to designs?
Sure, Thea. Actually, I'm not sure if it is
Okay.
now verified needs or
Okay. Gabrielle, what is your vote?
Designs I would exclude, and verified needs seems the correct one.
Okay. Amarachi, Amal, do y'all have input?
Gabriel, verified needs or verified requirements?
what's verified requirements? Trace requirements, you mean, Emma?
Well, since Gabriel she has chosen C, I'm trying to ask and highlight the needs.
Ah,
Do you mean to choose verified needs as an input or verified requirements?
Remember what task we're on.
mm-hmm.
Yeah, requirements and designs are always the inputs and outputs for this knowledge area. The because we are on the approved requirements, the output will be requirements approved and designs approved.
And what are the inputs for that
The
task?
inputs will be
I would
Designs and requirement. Ah, okay. Yeah,
design
I'm switching
requirements.
my answer now to yeah. Okay, let's go with designs.
I would like to ask
I'm sorry, go ahead, Gabrielle.
the verified needs and the requirements. Isn't the BABOK the needs?
Verified needs is an invented term in this case. It's not in the BABOK. It's verified requirements that is the one of the inputs into approved requirements. So the two inputs into approved requirements are designs and verified requirements.
Yeah, it says requirements verified. Okay. 5.5.3. It's
Or Gabriel, and for future references, need is something very high level, like a business need. But then, as a business analyst, we are breaking down those needs to the requirements.
Uh, from my side, it was just the needs. It's not from the BABOK. It's called the requirements. And from my sense, it would have been the traced requirements instead of the needs, but the correct one was the design, and there I have to go in that BABOK item again.
You just
Okay.
got it.
But for me, it's I'm coming from IT security, and there are other priorities than business analyst has. And I have to do a risk analysis in the main on behalf we have some milliards of dollars in our systems which we maintain, and so it's a high risk company.
Yes,
And
right.
there I have to do risk analysis at the most priority, much more than the user needs and requirements. So
Yeah.
the regulatory and governance and information security, risk management, that are the priorities for me. And I have to come from the learning that business analysts are thinking another way, especially when they have been educated by the BABOK.
Yeah. It's good that you are understanding the people that speak a different language than you.
Yes,
We are at the end of our time today. I'm going to go ahead and submit the exam. We've only answered 18 problems, so I'm going to calculate it by 18. We got 16 correct, so we made an 89 on this, which is a much improvement over what we did last time. So I feel like we are in a good place with requirements lifecycle management. The things that y'all did not get correct, I think are easily correctable if you'll go look at those sections. I hope you are marking them as we go along. What I'd like to do next week is move on into the next chapter, into chapter 6. Is that okay with everyone?
Yeah. Can we go only to chapter 6 so we don't mix up
Yes.
things?
Yes, we're going to only be looking at chapter 6. So let me give you some information about chapter 6. 6, 7, and 8, and I'm telling you this so that you're not surprised. 6, 7, and 8 are the hardest chapters in the BABOK. 6 has the benefit of having only 4 different tasks in it. There's analyze current state, define future state, assess risks, and define change strategy. You know that you do these things as you are doing these things also. I mean, it's like we're layering new activities on top of each other. So as you're maintaining requirements, as you're tracing requirements, you're also doing your analyze current state and your define future state. You're also assessing your risk. So we're moving into kind of a higher view of it. And in this,
Yeah.
each of these have a lot of elements. Let me pull this down here. A lot. So the business need, you look at it top down from what the executives see, bottom up from what the users see, middle management, they kind of see it from a different perspective as well. Or externally, you identify business need from one of those four areas. Then you go into each of these other tasks. I'm sorry, each of these other elements within the task.
He's
Uh,
quite
I'm sorry, say that again.
hungry, I think. Sorry, Tia.
It's okay. It's okay. Um, so let's work on this one next week. I am not expecting super high test results the first time we do this because this is harder. We're getting a little bit more abstract. So I need you to really dive into it though and work on understanding what analyzed current state is, what the needs are, I'm sorry, what the inputs are, what the elements are, what your guidelines and tools are, what the jobs of the stakeholder. I mean, you got to do it all. You have to go through it all. So next week, let's come back and we'll test on chapter 6. I will work on getting Slack access for everyone. I'm sorry that we're having challenges with Slack. If we continue to have challenges with Slack, I'm just going to email you the files, and that way you have access to everything that you might want. Do I have any questions before we close?
No.
All good, Tia. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, excellent. Excellent. We are in the last 4 chapters. After we go through each of the last 4 chapters, we're going to do the 3, 4, 5, 6, and then we'll go to 7. We'll do 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We'll go to 8. We'll do 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, 7, 8. And then y'all are going to be doing the breadth of every single thing you're going to need to know for the BABOK. One of the things that I want you to be aware of is you also need to be looking at those techniques and the other documents that I've created for you because there's going to be impact on your test about which technique should you use, and you need to know for this task which technique would be appropriate. Um, One of the things I really like about those technique worksheets I've created is if you see this word, it's probably talking about this technique. If you see this, it's probably talking about this technique. So I think they're very beneficial. Um, please reach out to me on LinkedIn if you have any questions. The fastest way to reach me is through LinkedIn. I'm on there 6 times a day. And I really feel like y'all are doing really well. You're setting yourself up for success to be able to pass this test. So let's get it done. I'll talk to y'all next week. Y'all have a good week.
Yeah.
Bye.
Thank you all. Bye.
Bye.
Happy weekend.
Bye.
Thank you. Have a good
Bye.
time.
Bye.